action for another day of the week. Welcome to another edition of Chasing That Paper, presented by VegasInsider.com. So thank you for everyone who tuned in to the debut episode of the program yesterday. Maybe not a great performance from a betting perspective. We went just 2-4, Ian and I, so we will look to improve upon that today. So a little bit of a bright spot, though, from yesterday. The New York Jets. How about that? A nice comeback, coming back in the second half against the Atlanta Falcons, who are now, I believe, 2-18 against the spread in their last 20 preseason games. So it felt pretty good to be on the couch on a Monday night watching some Monday Night Football with some betting, rooting interest. So like I said, we're going to look to improve today, and to help me improve things today, we're going to bring in our girl, Stephanie Smalls. Smalls, welcome to Chasing That Paper. What's up?
I'm coming, so I'm excited to chase that paper with you and get started.
All right, absolutely. We are pumped to have Stephanie here with us. She'll be covering a little bit of everything with a focus on the NFL, some PGA, of course, a pretty big tournament coming up this weekend that we'll get into. And she's also going to have some fantasy football advice for us right in the thick of fantasy football draft season. But that is enough small talk with Smalls. It is time to get right into the action. My three best bets for Major League Baseball. We're going to start things off in Baltimore, where the Chicago Shit Sox are in town. And I'm going to take a shot on the Baltimore Orioles as an underdog, coming in at plus 121. So, Baltimore's been the better team. No matter which way you look at it here, they edge them out offensively, and the bullpen has been much better over the last 30 days. Orioles also on a nice 14-6 stretch at home. Great offensive numbers at home since the break, while Chicago's numbers on the road offensively take a pretty big dip outside of Chicago there. And don't sleep on Austin Voth here. I know you'll look at this pitching matchup and you say, well, the Shit Sox have a nice edge with Dylan Cease on the mound. Voth actually has a better xFIP and whip than Cease over the last 30 days. Pretty good as a starter for the Orioles at 2.76 ERA. And this is a really bad spot for the White Sox bullpen, which isn't good to begin with. So starting pitcher Michael Kopech was yanked yesterday after recording 0 outs. Big fuck up by Tony La Russa, apparently. 7 different arms out of the bullpen. And like I said, the White Sox bullpen isn't good to begin with. So give me the Orioles as a plus 121 underdog. Next up, dogs don't stop. We go out to San Diego, and I'm going to take a shot on the Cleveland Guardians coming in at plus 132. So hitting in this matchup is pretty close. The edge probably goes to the Padres, to be fair, but a pretty big pitching advantage for the Guardians. Let's get right into it. So Savali on the mound here for Cleveland. And this guy on a nice little roll here. Check out his last 4 starts. A 0.83 whip and a 2.00 ERA with 0 home runs allowed. And the Padres countering with Mike Clevinger. Now, I know you're thinking, Mike Clevinger, revenge game. Don't incorporate that into your handicap. This guy's been pretty bad lately. 9 walks to 13 strikeouts this month across 4 starts. And he's getting off easy with this competition he's facing. Marlins, Nationals, home to the Rockies, the Tigers. He faced a good team in that stretch, the Dodgers. He allowed 5 earned runs against them, and a gigantic gap between the bullpens. The Guardians probably have the best bullpen in baseball right now, so we'll take a shot. Plus 132. And we're going to wrap it up in New York City. It is New York versus New York. This game has a total of 8.5 runs. Boom! I'm all over the over in this one, coming in at minus 115. So look who's on the mound here for the Yankees. Former steroid user, Frankie Montas. We don't forget around here at Chasing That Paper, Frankie. And he's been god-awful since coming over from the Oakland A's. He's made 3 starts for the Yankees. He has a 9.00 ERA and a 171 whip. Mets absolutely destroying right-handed pitching right now. This is not a good get-right spot for Frankie Montas. The Mets are 3rd in OPS and WRC plus versus righties over the last 30 days. Meanwhile, not a whole lot of good things to say about Taijuan Walker, who's starting for the Mets here. A 5.75 xFIP over his last 5 starts. He has not been right, and it is worth noting that he did fall off after the All-Star break last season as well. Meanwhile, we'll take a look at the Yankees bullpen, which is absolute bullshit right now. One of the highest walk rates in xFIPs over the last month in all of Major League Baseball. So there you have it. My 3 best bets of the night for Major League Baseball. Now we're going to shift gears from the baseball field to the golf course. Pretty big tournament coming up here this weekend, the Tour Championship. And we're going to bring in Stephanie. She's got 2 picks for us. What do you got for us, Smalls?
Yeah, let's get into it. So the PGA Tour season's coming to an end this week with the Tour Championship at East Lake Golf Club. For those of you that don't follow golf, it is a little bit funkier of a tournament. The leading player, who this week, Scotty Scheffler, will start from 10 under, followed by a staggered start. East Lake is the complete test of golf. It rewards positional tee shots while also yielding quite a high percentage of missed greens in regulation. Since the current format of the Tour Championship in 2019, each of the 3 winners started at least 5 under par. With that being said, I start out with my first bet, which is going to be a player starting at 6 under in Xander Schauffele. I like him winner without starting strokes plus 800. Xander historically has great results at this course. In his 5 previous starts at East Lake, his worst finish was just tying for 7th, and he's accumulated 4 top 3 finishes and 2 wins in 2017 and 2020. Since the end of April, he's had 3 wins and 8 top 10 finishes in 9 of his last 10 tournaments, including T3 at BMW last week. He's going to enter this tournament in fantastic form. In his last 20 rounds, Schauffele ranks number 1 in several strokes gained metrics, including total, putting, and short game. He also finds himself within the top 5 in ball striking, tee to green, and approach play. If I'm looking for as much value as I can in this tournament, which isn't everyone's favorite to bet on, I'm looking at Xander Schauffele, winner without starting strikes, plus 800.
Okay, so how about something a little bit safer for us that don't want to risk a whole lot here? Maybe something in the top 5. What do you like, Smalls?
Yes. So we'll go to everyone's beloved Rory McIlroy. This will actually be my first time betting him this season outside of a first round leader bet. I like him top 5 without strokes plus 160. This is a great course fit for him. He's dominated at this course the last several times he's played, finishing outside the top 10 only twice in 8 of appearances at East Lake. He has a huge advantage off the tee on the longer par 4s and 5s, and he is one of the recent form leaders in strokes gained tee to green. Last 50 rounds, he's top 5 in strokes gained off the tee, and he's fighting to be the first golfer to ever win the FedEx Cup 3 times. So while Rory does tend to come up just short of winning, I like him here to finish top 5 without the strokes plus 160. So 2 nice plus money bets for you guys heading into the Tour Championship.
Big plus money show here today at Chasing That Paper. That's 4 total plus money picks, Smalls, including the baseball one. So if you are looking for a place to place these bets, I have the sports book for you, because VegasInsider has teamed up with BetMGM to offer new users an amazing welcome offer. BetMGM Sportsbook is offering an exclusive bonus/promo consisting of a $1,000 risk-free bet. Users must use the code VIBONUS at sign-up and be located in a legal betting state where BetMGM is licensed. This is for new users only, and full terms and conditions apply. So there you go, Smalls, a place to place your bet. So, of course, anyone who knows Stephanie knows that she comes to us from the world of fantasy football season, and we're right in the thick of fantasy football draft season right now. I like to wait to do mine because you always see some type of big injury during the preseason or training camp. But Stephanie has a few players on her radar who shouldn't be on your radar. Some people call them busts. We'll call them players to avoid. So, Smalls, who are some players that we should be avoiding near the top of our fantasy drafts this season?
Yes, so I'm going to come out hot on my first episode of Chasing That Paper, and I'm going to give you 2 names that you're probably tempted to draft, but I think you avoid unless you get some nice value on them. We're going to start with DK Metcalf. His current ADP is wide receiver 18. It's dropped from wide receiver 17 since last week. So I think people are starting to catch on to this. This isn't a talent-based argument, and a lot of times talent can, persevere through a shitty situation. But last year he did show a little bit of regression, even with Wilson at quarterback. He didn't even crack 1,000 yards after, putting up a 1,303 yard campaign in 2020. Last season he had 129 targets, but only came down with 58.1% of them and had a career low of 7.5 yards per target. And he gets a massive downgrade in quarterback. I mean, we're talking about Geno Smith and Drew Lock. Serviceable backup quarterbacks, not the guy you want throwing to your stud DK Metcalf week after week. Likely going to make them rely heavy on that run game. And we already know how Carroll has a nice fetish with his run game. So I don't see a path where Metcalf is going to catch 12 touchdowns again in 2022. Lock's career high is 16 touchdowns, and Smith hasn't thrown over 12 since 2014. So going as the wide receiver 18 in the back of the third, I think you look at some players with some higher upside there unless he falls to you.
Yeah, that team's in trouble. Their offensive line stinks. And let me tell you, this team is tanking on purpose. And here's the thing. They deserve to be able to do this. I think they've been in the playoffs in 8 of the last 10 years. So they're going to take a year off, take the foot off the gas, maybe end up near the top of the draft in 2023 and get their next Russell Wilson. Okay, so who's another player we should be avoiding in fantasy drafts this season?
This one shouldn't bother people as much, but for some reason I'm still seeing him go very high in drafts. We're looking at Darren Waller. His ADP right now is still tight end 5. If you're like me, he burnt you last season. He finished tight end 17 after missing 6 games. Price at tight end 5 is just far too rich for me. It's impossible, not even nearly impossible to say that Devontae Adams headed over to the Raiders doesn't threaten Waller's target share. Also, we've got Hunter Renfrow, who is destined to still play a very important role in the Raiders passing game and put another dent into Waller's target share. So you've got Waller with a 4th round ADP in a tight end who is already struggling with a hamstring injury in camp. He's turning 30 years old and now is faced with a very significant target competition. I am out on Darren Waller at his ADP tight end 5.
Yeah, I don't know about Darren Waller, but here's what I know about the Raiders. I like them coming into this season. It's funny, you often don't call a team that's coming off an appearance in the playoffs as a sleeper, but I think the Raiders fall into this category a little bit. They had this incredible amount of drama last season, and they overcame it all. I know a lot of close wins and whatnot, but some pretty big upgrades from a personnel perspective. I think Josh McDaniels has a better go-around and a second go-around as a head coach than his first. But let me put you on the spot here and ask you this. So the AFC West, obviously the best division in the NFL. Who finishes in last place in that division?
Yep, and I guess I'm going to stay on this asking for the smoke here, followed by my DK Metcalf. The Broncos, I just think are getting overhyped here. You've got a new coach, a brand new quarterback there. And also, we have to look at it. The AFC West, whoever loses this is probably still going to win 9-10 games because it's going to be such a tight competition. But I think the Broncos are a little bit overvalued right now. The Raiders do have a full system there that could easily knock them out. And, you still have the Chiefs, the Chargers. I'm not putting my money on the Broncos. I think that people assume that Russell Wilson's going to go over there and everything's going to be happy-go-lucky. Jerry Jeudy's going to end up being Justin Jefferson, and the running backs so I think it's going to go, we got Hackett over there. Not going to go maybe as planned.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that the Broncos could have a good season, but some team has to finish last in that division. I think that they could underwhelm a little bit. I don't think that it's automatic that you just plug Russell Wilson in and they become a 12-win team all of a sudden. Also, I don't know about Nathaniel Hackett at head coach. Look, pretty big red flag that his best body work. Congratulations. You had a lot of success working with Aaron Rodgers, one of the best quarterbacks in league history. So I don't know about that. I put that out there on Twitter last night and people gave me a lot of shit about that. Okay, so moving on to, I guess we'll call it our topic of the day today. And speaking of underwhelming teams, if you know Smalls and I, you know that she's a hardcore New York Giants fan. You know that I'm a hardcore Miami Dolphins fan. So we've had a lot to complain about in regards to these teams in recent years, Smalls, but we're going to try to keep it a little bit positive, and we're going to talk realistic best case scenarios for our teams. And what we mean by this is neither of these teams is winning the Super Bowl, but neither of them is going 0-17. So what's a realistic best case for the Dolphins? I'll get us started here. I think from an overall results perspective, Miami simply getting into the playoffs would be a gigantic win for this team. And I also think it's fairly realistic. Miami's been right on the doorstep of getting into the playoffs in each of the past 2 seasons where they finished above 500. Maybe they choked a little bit, though, in the final games of the season. I think that's absolutely fair to say. Now, from a personnel perspective, best case scenario for the Miami Dolphins, Tua has got to take a gigantic leap. This guy has had a lot of excuses, many of them very legit. But coming into 2022, those excuses don't really exist anymore. They've surrounded this guy with a ton of talent. They've upgraded the offensive line. They brought in an offensive-friendly head coach who's going to cater to Tua's skills. Also, speaking of that offensive-friendly head coach, we need Mike McDaniel. Now, this guy's become like a little bit of a media darling. That's always a little bit of a red flag for me. But if he can fall into that mold of a Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay, then Miami might have their coach of the future, someone who could coach a team for 10 years as opposed to the revolving door that they've had a head coach every 2 or 3 years. They're starting over. The team also needs Tyreek Hill to shut up a little bit and stop being such a distraction. And he can't fall off from a talent perspective. What I mean by that, his stats are probably going to fall off going from Mahomes to Tua at quarterback, but the talent still has to exist. And I would also love to see a big sophomore leap from Javon Holland and Jalen Phillips on the defensive end. Now, the worst case scenario for the Miami Dolphins, things could get ugly if they don't get off to a good start, but we'll save that for another day. Smalls, best case scenario for your New York Giants in 2022.
Yeah, they're an interesting one because I can't imagine this team being any worse than they were last year, finishing 4-13, 31st in points scored, 23rd in points allowed, and they ranked 31st offense overall by PFF. I mean, the Giants are literally on their 5th head coach and 3rd GM in just 8 years. They've had 5 straight seasons of double-digit losses. And that part I don't see changing. I don't think they're going to turn into this double-digit win team overnight. So best case scenario is that we see this team be competitive. We see this team take strides in the right direction and win more than 4 games, which is a very pathetic standard to put them at. But this is where we're at. Most Giants fans will tell you that they are not in a rebuild, or they've been in a rebuild. The rebuild started this year, so everyone needs to just pump the brakes a little bit. I'm excited and optimistic. You have Dable come in, and media really likes that. I like that. I think his numbers, even to win head coach of the year, are quite interesting. But best case scenario, Jones stays healthy, the wide receivers stay healthy, Jones is consistent, continues to decrease turning the ball over, and the O-line is competent enough to allow us to see a Saquon that we saw at the start of his career. And if we want to talk about likely unrealistic, but I guess in a very sedated NFC, I think they compete for a playoff spot there. I don't know that any of these options are that enough to save Mr. Jones, but their secondary as well, that's going to probably kill them. They're going to have a blitz happy defense, but really no depth there. We're asking a lot of young guys to step up. So best and worst case scenario might fall into each other's laps, because we might have worst case scenario also drafting pretty high, and I think that'll be needed given the horrible money situation Mr. Gettleman left us in. So best case scenario, this team looks at 7-8 wins. Worst case scenario, we're still at 4, and Dable starts to get a target on his back because the New York media is not forgiving, and Shane as well. So we'll see what Jones can do if Dable can pull out that talent that we saw his rookie year, and if he can not turn the ball over, and Kadarius is what he's supposed to be, then maybe the Giants have a nice season. And I think a nice season would be even 6 wins is better than 4.
Yeah, fair breakdown from Smalls. I by no means am a Giants fan, but you never want to see guys get injured. We saw Thibodeau go down with that one over the weekend. And I would love to see Saquon Barkley bounce back here, Smalls, and, play 15 or 16 games. We're seeing too many of these young running backs, their careers over by the time they get to 25, 26 years old. So I will be rooting for you there. And another thing I will be rooting for is our CTP picks. So picks from you guys. I put out a tweet every single morning on Twitter asking for your best bet breakdowns of the night. And we've had a few responses here. Our guy Gino, Philly guy 23777. Smalls, do you follow this guy?
I do not, but I think I need to, since this isn't exactly the sport that I think would be my expertise.
Yeah, okay, so not a whole lot of soccer coverage on the show, but that doesn't mean you cannot send these picks in. So Gino's got a pick from the Champions League for us, Cervena Zvedba. I absolutely butchered that, but maybe he's got a winner for us. Moneyline and over 2.5 goals in the match. Combine the two to get the price of plus 137. Savannah lost the first leg 3-2 and should come out firing today as they are an excellent home team. Okay, a little bit of a breakdown for Gino. What do we got next there? Producer Tito is bringing up one from Bookie's Worst Nightmare. Buddy Max 18. I recognize this guy from Twitterland. My favorite NFL future player prop this year is Jerry Jeudy over 905.5 yards. JJ out targets Sutton when both on the field at the same time. T. Patrick injury helps. Third-year breakout incoming from a guy that was considered in that Jefferson Waddle Lamb tier in the draft with now an elite quarterback. So Smalls, I got to ask you, are you high or low on Jerry Jeudy coming into this season?
Yeah, I am higher on Jerry Jeudy than I think the, your average person. 905.5 is a lot of yards for a guy that, I think his best year, that rookie year, he was just around 850 yards. And last season, I don't know if we even saw him break 470. So while I think Jeudy is going to have a great season, I love taking unders on these futures bets. Usually these are set a little bit too high. And 905.5 just can't get there for that over. Would love to see it. Jeudy was one of my favorite prospects coming out that year, so would love for him to have a great season. But I think even 870 is a win for him. And I think that the Broncos, Russell Wilson, like we kind of alluded to earlier, we're not totally all bought in. So for me, 905.5, little too high.
Yeah, I love betting the under on these season-long player props. All it takes is the guy to get injured and miss 2 or 3 games, and he's completely screwed. So I've been doing these videos on the Vegas Insider YouTube page where I'm doing a best bet for every single team this season. A lot of player prop unders in those. Carson Wentz under on his passing yard total was one of my absolute favorites. So go check that one out. So Smalls, we're about 21 minutes in here, ready to wrap things up here. Any closing words for our audience?
No, just hope that Xander and I are in sync. I tend to bet him the weeks that he ends up not winning instead of winning. So I hope this is the week. Plus 800 is pretty nice for this type of tournament. So let's hopefully get a Xander win.
Okay, so there you have it. Some wise words from Smalls, and we will leave it at that. Make sure you join us tomorrow when I will be joined by Devin Walker. We're going to be covering, of course, our favorite Major League Baseball picks and a little bit of college football talk from Devin. Also, make sure you are checking out Down to the Wire with Kevin Rogers, 6 Eastern live here on our Vegas Insider YouTube page. Good luck with your bets tonight, unless you are fading us. And as always, keep chasing that paper. Whoa!